Today I'm going to talk about a rather large topic that has many components to it, and I'm going to just be touching on some highlights around how we cope for the long term, and I'm going to lead you in a short guided imagery. We know that we're all being stretched to cope with such unusual life-changing circumstances right now. And our world certainly has changed from what we knew and will continue to look different, asking us to adapt. And so when we develop our capacity to cope with adversity, no matter what arises, and when we can be flexible and adaptive, when we can have support, both internal support and external support, we develop resilience. And also, part of that capacity to develop resilience is how we perceive and respond to our stressors. So let's look at ways to develop resilience first on a physical nervous system level. We know that any type of mindfulness practices that connect us to the present, that help us to be aware without judgment, those are very helpful right now. And just to remember that if your nervous system is in a more hyper-aroused, a more anxious state, a more agitated state, overwhelmed state, that's when you want to move towards tools that can relax you, center you, calm racing thoughts, help you to discharge the tension. Also, if you are on the other end of the spectrum feeling more depressed or collapsed, in a more hypo-aroused state, you want to engage in tools and activities that increase your energy, that connect you to your sense of self. And just a reminder, some really good practices are things like yoga, tai chi, qigong, things that help you to be in the present-oriented state, that use movement and the breath to help with the regulation. We can also regulate through our five senses. So when we really drop into what we are seeing, the colors, the shapes, what we're hearing, what we're smelling, what we're tasting, what we're touching, that helps us to drop into the present and can be very calming and can be energizing for the nervous system. So let's move on to more of like our emotional selves. We know that rehashing or ruminating about the past or worrying about the future is not very helpful at this time. It takes us out of the present, it drains our energy. And so again, any of the mindfulness-based practices can really help us to drop our bodies, our minds, our emotions more into the present. It's important at this time, I think, to also have compassion for yourself and others. And most of us can be supported by some heartfelt practices that will help us to bring kindness and compassion to ourselves, and also maybe forgiveness to ourselves and others. Another important thing is really being able to notice and allow for your different emotions at this time. Your sadness, your fear, your anger, they're real. And when you can label the emotion, when you can experience it in your body, when you just allow for it without getting wrapped up in the whole story and lost in the story, that helps regulate. It creates some new pathways in the brain when you can observe that. There's one particular technique and a tool that was developed by Tara Brach, who's a psychologist and a mindfulness teacher, and it's under the acronym RAIN. So it stands for being able to recognize, allow, inquire or investigate, and to nourish or nurture with compassion. So if you're more interested in that, in working with your feelings and body sensations, I highly recommend you look at her website and some of her tools that are there. If you're feeling agitated or fearful or out of balance in some way, I think a big question to ask is, what do I need? What do I need right now? What can I attend to physically, emotionally, socially, spiritually? We know the importance of gratitude and appreciation, that when we can focus on that, even for a short period of the day, even for a small moment, that these are ways that start to rewire the brain, start to develop new neural networks. Also, humor is very important. Moments where you can laugh, where something might seem absurd or silly. Again, it creates some new pathways. So again, all these things on an emotional level are things we can do to keep developing our coping toolkit and help develop that sense of being able to be resilient. Let's look at mentally. So even though none of us have experienced a global pandemic before, you all have gone through things that have been difficult in your lives. And it's important, I think, to remember that what are the things that helped me to get through it in the past? Who and what are my supports? And remember that those tools you used in the past develop that sense of resilience. It's important mentally to watch for what I call cognitive distortions. So that might be catastrophizing, looking at black and white, or engaging in black and white thinking, or all or none thinking, or overgeneralizing, or focusing just on the negative, or expecting perfection of yourself and others. It's important right now to reframe some of those beliefs in a more positive and realistic way, and also to take in the good, as Rick Hansen says. What is good right now? What is positive? It's important to identify what you have control over. There are so many things right now you don't have control over. So what is it that I do? Maybe it's making a short list. Maybe it's taking action. Where can I take action in my life? Just being able to remember and feel that sense of agency again, that trusting in your innate capacity. Those are components of resilience. You also may be doing it now, or you may be able to do it in the future, is identify how the challenges are offering opportunities for growth. Acknowledging the new things I'm learning, the new things I'm trying. Acknowledging the creativity that may be developing or may be being asked of you right now. How might I be needing to do things differently at work, at home? So all these things together can support what is called a post-traumatic growth, can support us as we integrate the changes. We can recognize that there's also growth that's happening. Our relational life also builds resilience, and mostly so far we've been talking about internal things one can do, but it's also important to feel the support of external resources. So those may be my relationships or my communities or my activities. And it's important to really keep cultivating maybe new connections or deep and familiar connections with coworkers, with family, with friends, with neighbors. It's important to reach out for support, whether it's social support or it's professional support. And I think that concept of, I think many of us are doing this, is we're tending to ourselves, we're tending to others, we're befriending our neighbors. So we may be seeing new ways we're making connections. And lastly, which I think I should have put in the beginning, is our spiritual connection and how that supports our sense of resilience. So that's a very personal thing, defined in a very personal way, and I'd like to just think of it in a broad way right now, is there something bigger than myself? Is there something I can put my trust and faith into? And for some, that's being in nature. For others, that may be a certain spiritual figure or practice. But again, feeling like there's an external resource, a guide, a support, can also build that capacity inside us to know that we can adapt. So I want to give you a couple resources before we end this section. So couple or some books that are out there and some talks that are available. So Linda Graham is a marriage family therapist. She wrote a couple books, one of them called Bouncing Back. Her more recent one is called Resilience, Powerful Practices for Bouncing Back from Disappointment, Difficulty, and even Disaster. And so in her book, there's lots of tools and resources around things you can do to build that resilience. Some of the things in these different domains I've been mentioning, and also in different practices across from the most disappointing to the most disastrous. Also, Rick Hansen, who is a psychologist and also a fellow with the Greater Good Institute in Berkeley, he wrote a book called Resilient, and also various other books. He also has various talks, and so he's another person if you're interested in really working with some practices that could help develop that physical, emotional, mental resilience. So what I'd like to do now is to switch gears here a little bit, is to just, we're going to let all these thoughts and ideas that have maybe bubbled up as I've spoken, and just let them recede, kind of like clouds. And we're going to do a little imagery that focuses on or connects you to your essential self, your expansive core, your innate sense of worthiness and goodness and wholeness. So I'd like you to start with taking 3 to 4 cleansing breaths. And as you breathe in fully, feeling your chest and abdomen expand. Breathing in maybe a sense more of calmness and ease and peace. And breathing out more of a sense of stress and tension. With each breath, allowing yourself to just become a little bit more present in your body, a little more grounded, perhaps a little more of a sense of things softening. And then just allow your breath to come back to its own natural rhythm. Breathing in and out. feeling the breath as your anchor. And then I'd like you to connect to your feet and feel how your feet are connected to the floor and how below the concrete and other levels is the earth. And to imagine and feel the sense of some roots going from your feet down into the earth and spreading wide, perhaps getting thicker as they go into the earth. And allowing those roots to ground you to the earth, to nourish you. And then to slowly bring up from that root system in the earth that sense of groundedness and nourishment, and have it come up through your feet. Move up through the lower part of your legs, to your upper legs, into your perineum area and pelvis. And so you can feel that sense of rootedness in your legs, your pelvis. And then I would like you to connect to the crown of your head. And imagine this energy reaching up to the heavens or the stars, the cosmos, to a divine light, a healing, expansive light, and bringing that light down through your crown of your head, over your face, the back of your head, your shoulders, into your heart center. So in this moment, feeling both solid and grounded and light and expansive. And now I'd like you to invite in an image, a simple image or a memory that connects you with your sense of either aliveness or wholeness or joy. It may be something that connects you with that sense of aliveness and certainty and confidence. It may be an experience where you've tapped into that sense of deep worthiness, inherent goodness, lovability. Or an image or memory that connects you to this creativity, to a sense of competency, to joy. And trying not to get too lost on the perfect image or a memory, but just trusting whatever comes that maybe connects you in a positive way to that sense of inherent goodness, expansiveness, worthiness, joy. And let that image just become a little bit more real to you. Noticing what you might be seeing, hearing, touching. And as you stay with the image, letting those qualities penetrate into your body and noticing the body sensations that are also here. Maybe there's a sense of more ease or expansiveness or spaciousness. Maybe there's even an excitement in the body, an aliveness in the body. So just notice what's coming up for you in your body right now. And then also notice any emotions that are here right now. Is there a sense of happiness or pride or ease or just well-being or excitement? Just noticing whatever is arising for you. And feeling how that image and the body felt sensation is nourishing you, supporting you. How it mirrors your own innate sense of worthiness and capacity, goodness. And now lastly, staying with our image, before we end the imagery, I'd like you to invite in around your body a boundary. It's a permeable boundary. And maybe, just for simplicity, you could just choose a color and see if that color has a shape. And imagine that this boundary holds all this goodness inside. And let that space, that sense of expansiveness, aliveness, your core innate light and worthiness, let it fill up out to that boundary. And knowing that you can take this with you wherever you go. As you go back out in the world, and that this boundary will protect you, will keep that essence inside you. And you can decide if you want to share that out. They can go out through the boundary. And you can also hold on to it. So, seeing this essential self, this expansive core, moving through the rest of your day and evening, and in the days to come, protected by your boundary, as you bring it out into the world. So thank you very much for joining me today. I hope this was helpful, and wishing you all the best in your journey.